What we are calling God mode tuning is a large open power chord tuning that extends the range of your guitar and makes it really easy to play one shape stuff across the neck. Check it out. So let's take a look at the tuning itself and how it differs from standard. We're going to start by lowering our low E all the way down to C, and this thing is going to be flapping in the breeze. We're going to talk about string gauges here in a second. Our A is going to go down to G. We're going to lower our D string down to C. We're keeping the G where it is. We're raising our B to C, and we're going to raise our high E up to G. And this is how it's different from an open C tuning. We have to be careful here because we're really putting a lot of stress on our high E string. I'm running 9 through 42 or whatever standard, strings that kind of come on every guitar, but you might want to, well, we'll talk about string gauges here in a minute. Let's take a look at what it does to our fretboard. So here you can see what the sharps and flats look like for standard tuning, and standard tuning is great. Here's what the flats and sharps look like for Bizarro tuning, which we did a video on a while back. And here what we're trying to do is stagger our naturals and our accidentals so we can play whole tone scales and augmented chords very easily. So this is not a very friendly sounding tuning. By contrast, here we see our God mode tuning, which is basically what most people would refer to as open C tuning, except we're tuning our high E all the way up to that G, so that we have these 3 repeating fifths. And as you can see, it lines things up pretty nicely. Right now I'm a little afraid to bend my high E string. It is a 9 and it is under a lot of stress. So I'm not bending that. Now I could stick something like a 7 on there, maybe get some custom string gauges. That would probably be a good idea for this particular tuning. One thing you do want to watch out for here is if you do opt for a custom set of strings and you want to put a really thicker gauge string on your low E, you want to be careful about how you're treating the nut, this part, right? So if I stick a really thick string on there where my low E used to be, if the little slot here is not wide enough, I could split my plastic nut here. So if you're going to do that, you might need to file in and make that slot a little wider to accept your thicker string. Here's what some chords sound like in this tuning. Here are some lovely one-shape scales going across the strings. And it's kind of nice because you can just kind of do your basic sort of scale fragment shapes. So a whole step, half step, whole step, and then 2 whole steps. Now for arpeggios, you'll find that any sort of sweep picking kind of patterns that you used to be able to do on standard are not going to work out too well. But the bonus is you can do a lot of sort of 2-note per string stuff here and get really easy major 7 and minor 7 arpeggios. So let's talk about the pros and cons of this tuning. Pros. Number one, it expands the range of your guitar, which is really awesome. So you can play some really low drop C sounding stuff, and you can solo way up into the stratosphere on your high E. It makes it really easy to play one shape scales and sort of one shape based patterns. So that stuff's gonna come out sounding amazing and very easy to play. So what about some cons here? Well, I don't think it's as versatile as standard tuning. There's a reason standard tuning is standard, because you can do a lot with it. It's very usable across different styles and genres. This God mode, sort of open C with the high G tuning, I don't know the high G. I don't know if it's going to be that versatile for you. It's just going to take some exploration. Another con, you might need some custom string gauges. So if you have a spare guitar lying around that you can use for this tuning all the time, you could widen the slot for your low E if it's a 6-string guitar, stick a thicker gauge in there, maybe order a thinner gauge for the top, and you know, figure out the best gauge for each pitch and just have your God mode guitar ready to go. My poor guitar is sort of hanging on for dear life right now. I never really kept it in this tuning for very long, but I can tell you that after a few days it'll settle down. And I happen to like the sound of a lighter gauge string tuned low. I think it has an interesting quality to it that you don't get with a thicker gauge. Obviously it's a little weird. It's harder to keep in tune and it's very loose feeling, but I think the tone is interesting. So that's it, folks. If you have a guitar that can handle this tuning, I encourage you to try it out. Be careful. When I was cranking my high E up, I was like scared that the thing was gonna just snap off and take out an eye or something. But luckily that didn't happen. But it's really cool, it's really fun, it's really easy. Check it out. I think you'll like it. Go forth, practice, have fun. We'll see you in the next one.